I'm Tara Rodriguez. I am the Director of the Division of School and Program Improvement, and Title I is here in our division at the Kentucky Department of Education. So let me call the roll and get a count of who our committee members are joining us here today. Jan Anger.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Mary Beth Bowling. Ashley Burnett. Christina Dalton. Ricky Hanger. Stephanie Harris.
Present.
Diane Hatfield. Holly Kimball.
I'm here.
David Malonti. David, I think you're on mute. Okay, Robert Tanner. Mr. Tanner, I think you might be on mute as well. Okay, I can see Mr. Tanner, but I can't hear him. And Daryl Vincent.
Yes, right here.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. Thanks to everyone for being here. We have the next thing on our agenda is we're going to take a, well, let me first start by reviewing the purpose of the Committee of Practitioners. If we can go to the next slide. This is a committee that is mandated in statute. The Kentucky Department of Education, as the state education agency, is required to have a committee of practitioners. And we'll see on the next slide that its role is to gather feedback from the committee as to our implementation of Title I. Leslie, is the slides not advancing?
No, they are not. Want me to try sharing on my end and see if they cooperate?
Yeah,
Yes,
that would be great.
please. All right. Teams is being kind of crazy this morning. Okay. Whoops. Whoops.
Well, you're on the right thing. We just need to get to the second slide.
Okay, hang on. Whoops. Well, come on. Oh my goodness, this is incredibly slow.
I've had that before too, and I don't know what it is. It's all right, there you go. Okay.
Okay.
So it's to review and comment on the rules, regulations, and policies, and it goes back to KDE's, or Kentucky Department of Education's, implementation of Title I. So that's parts A, B, C, and D, as amended by the Every Student Succeeds Act. And there is a web page for the Title I Committee of Practitioners. If you would like more information, there is a link, and it basically holds some more information about who the members are. You can see some examples of past agendas and so on. All right, can you go to the next slide, please, Erin?
I am not having any more luck. This is the strangest thing.
I did have this exact same problem on when I shared. I don't know what it is, if it's like being in a meeting with several people or what, but
It's crazy.
are you still trying to share it?
Okay, let's see. Let me see if I can click these little guys down here.
You know what we may do, Erin, if this presentation mode is a problem, there you go. Okay, but we can always go to the part where you have all the slides listed and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We can do that. It's not as pretty, but at least it shouldn't lock up like this.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go over some discussion items. These are our agenda items, and it kind of gives you just a refresher of what we're going to be talking about today. As requested at our January meeting, one of the committee members had requested that we share some innovative practices around parent and family engagement. So Erin will start by giving us some background and context of the requirements under Title I. And then we have invited Laura Beard, the Senior Director of the Commonwealth Institute for Parent Leadership from the Pritchard Committee, to come and discuss some innovative strategies. And then we will have Shara Savage, who is from our Office of Assessment and Accountability at KDE, will discuss some updates on the assessment and accountability Kentucky United We Learn Framework 3.0. Then we'll circle back to Erin, who will share with us a quick Title I Part A update, and then we will round out the meeting by discussing future agenda topics. And these are possible upcoming meetings. I just wanted to run these by the committee members to see if these would work for you. These are totally just draft suggestions, and we'll have some discussion about those. So let's go ahead and get started with our, I think the next slide is the start of our background of Title I Part A family engagement requirements, and Erin is going to share information with us about that.
All right, good morning, everyone. So Title I Part A Parent and Family Engagement is found in Section 1116 of the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, and this used to be called Parent Involvement under No Child Left Behind, but when they reauthorized it with ESSA, they changed it to Parent and Family Engagement. So I just wanted to kind of highlight the fact that that switch to engagement really puts an emphasis on more of a partnership between parents and schools instead of just involving them. So we're not just giving parents information, we're actually collaborating with them and working with them to support their child's academic achievement. The intent and purpose of parent and family engagement for Title I is fostering two-way communication with parents, a meaningful two-way communication, and then building the parents' capacity to engage in their child's education and actually be able to, work with them at home. So just a couple district level requirements. If districts have a Title I Part A allocation over $500,000, they are required to reserve at least 1% for parent and family engagement activities. They can do more than that if they want to, but it has to be at least 1%. And then at least 90% of that 1% has to be distributed out to the participating Title I schools. Again, if they want to distribute 100% of it to the schools, that's fine. And parents must have the opportunity to be involved in the decisions about how those funds are going to be spent. You want to make sure that districts and schools are getting that input. I should also mention for our districts that don't have allocations of $500,000, how much they reserve is up to them. They don't have to reserve anything. They can reserve 1%, somewhere in the middle, but everybody has to meet the Parent and Family Engagement Program requirements, whether they have to reserve funds or not. So there's something called the District Parent and Family Engagement Policy, and this is one of a couple parent and family engagement documents that is developed jointly with parents. So we want to make sure that all parents have the opportunity to engage and provide some feedback about what's in that policy. And the policy is a little bit different than maybe some other policies that people might be familiar with. A lot of policies just say, the district will or the school will, and then kind of state that requirement. ESSA specifically says that for parent and family engagement, the policy has to describe how the district or the school is going to meet those requirements. So we need a little bit of extra detail in the parent and family engagement policy. And the district is also required to annually evaluate their parent and family engagement policy and how that policy has supported improving the academic quality of the Title I schools. There is a section in ESSA 1112E that's called Parents' Right to Know. It just outlines several pieces of information that must be shared with parents. So up first is the notification of the right to request teacher qualifications. So districts have to provide a couple pieces of information about teacher qualifications. If the parents request it, they have to let parents know, hey, if you request this, we're going to make it available to you. Here's the things that you can request. And then, of course, if anyone does request it, they have to provide that. They also have to notify parents in the event that a child is taught for 4 or more consecutive weeks by a teacher who has not met state certification or licensure requirements. So maybe a long-term sub who doesn't meet the requirements of that specific class that they're subbing for. They just have to make sure parents are aware of that. And then the last one is a testing transparency requirement. This is just letting parents know that they can request information about the required assessments that their children are taking, whether those are required by the state or by the district. And the district also has to make this information widely available. ESSA specifically says posting on the district website. And then, of course, we do encourage other methods of communication as well, just to make sure everybody has a chance to see it. At the school level, we have a couple different parent and family engagement requirements. Up first is the annual meeting. ESSA doesn't specify when this meeting has to occur. We do recommend it happens at the beginning of the school year, just to kind of set the tone and let everybody know about the program up front. This meeting is just to explain the school's participation in Title I, kind of what it's about, how they're eligible, the different rights that parents have to be involved. Things like, hey, you have the right to help us figure out how to spend these parent and family engagement funds. A lot of times this meeting is paired with a widely attended event like an open house or a back to school bash, which is, we actually encourage that because a lot of people show up to those events. So just like the district has to have a parent and family engagement policy, the school also has to have their own policy, has a couple of different pieces of information than the district one. Again, this is still going to be developed jointly with parents, making sure all of the parents, not just our SPDM council members who are parents, want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to give feedback. A lot of schools will use maybe a survey or something like that to get that feedback. And again, the policy is going to describe how the school is meeting those requirements, not just saying, here's what we're going to do. We have to actually give some detail there. There's another document called the School Family Compact. Some schools put this and the policy together. Some keep them as separate documents. Again, developed jointly with parents. That's a theme here. And the compact outlines the different responsibilities that each of these parties share for academic success. So there's usually a section for the school, for the parent, and then for the student, and it has some I will statements. You know, I will come to class prepared, things like that. And the last requirement, this is for the elementary grades only. The compact must be discussed during at least one parent conference, and ESSA specifies how it's supposed to be discussed. It's not just sharing the compact with them or getting signatures. KDE does require that the compact has signatures. I think I failed to mention that. So we actually have to discuss how this document relates to the individual student's achievement and how the items in the compact can support that student's achievement. And then we have some different resources available for you. Of course, our Title I Part A handbook, the Parent and Family Engagement section, is on pages 14 through 22. We also have several templates for those different notifications I talked about. We have something called a sample documents folder. So districts and schools can take a look at that. Not required to use any of our templates. They're just there in case anybody wants to use them or, you know, modify them. These are some fairly new resources, our policy and compact resources. We've got checklists that outline all of the requirements of the things that are supposed to be in the policies and the compacts. And then we also have templates that districts and schools can customize. We have a district policy template. We have 2 school level policy templates, elementary and secondary, because there's a little bit of a difference in the requirements. And then we have a compact checklist that can be used for all grade levels. And then just an FAQ document with some basic information about the policy and compact. And finally, a compact discussion document in that sample documents folder, just kind of talking about how the compact needs to be discussed during the conference and some suggested methods for documenting that conversation occurred. And now we are ready to switch over to innovative family engagement strategies.
Okay. Did anybody have any questions on the information Erin shared before we move on to this? All right, then thank you so much, Erin. And now I want to welcome Laura Beard from the Pritchard Committee. And thank you so much, Laura, for being here to share with us about some innovative family engagement strategies.
Thank you, Tara. I really appreciate being here today. I'm just going to ask someone to go ahead and advance the slide. Just a little bit about me and the Pritchard Committee. I've been at the Pritchard Committee since 2019. Prior to that, I worked in family engagement with both behavioral health, public health. I've worked in school at the Family Resource Center, and then also as a child care director. So a lot of family engagement experience over my career, and it is ever evolving and ever changing. And so I'm super excited to be here today to talk about some of those changes. If you're familiar with the Pritchard Committee, we do have more than 40 years of work in education, advocacy, policy, and engagement here in Kentucky. We are building what's called a groundswell in our communities. And so we really want to see the partnerships between family, school, and community get stronger and deeper as we move towards more access for our students in terms of success for them in their future, and just knowing that those partnerships are going to be critical for that success. So the next slide, I think, just kind of builds upon that mission that we have to build a groundswell of support. And then next slide, I would just like to spend a little bit of time here. This is something that I've been using recently. I love visuals, and so this has come to me after a few different conferences and events that I've recently attended, where we're really talking about family engagement and how to deepen partnerships. When we talk about family engagement, we're going to talk a lot about relationships over the next couple of slides. And I just want to share this visual of a drawbridge with the school there being on, it would be on my left side, and then the community and families, let's say, are over on the right side. And so that bridge separates them. The drawbridge is owned by the school. And so the school is in control when the drawbridge is down and when the drawbridge is up. And we've seen a lot of changes in family engagement due to school safety, which is something that we have to attend to and be aware of. But it's created this complex, sometimes the door is shut, sometimes the door is open kind of model that we've seen in our schools. And so when I think about the drawbridge, I think that our communities sometimes see it open and they're not necessarily sure what it is that the school would like for them to do or why they should cross over. And sometimes the drawbridge is pulled up and the community and school, or the community and families, are somewhat not able to access the school. And so how can we create a balance between understanding that there is some safety concerns for our schools and the public being invited in, but also build the understanding for when it is very important for our families to be there, our communities to show up, so that we can have that support and that partnership. So if you'll advance to the next slide. The goal today is really to think about not just some strategies, but really our overall mind shift that has to happen around building relationships. And so Erin mentioned that we used to talk about family involvement. And we measured that by attendance. Involvement meant we wanted a lot of people to show up, a lot of people to show up in a school building. Engagement is partnership, so it looks different. Engagement is not always that we have 200 parents show up to an event at the school. Engagement means that we've built a partnership with someone. It's a little bit harder to track, and I think that's why it becomes a little bit difficult sometimes for our schools to feel that they've been successful in parent engagement, because it's not about attendance. But we've been so accustomed to providing numbers for how many families showed up for something that it's hard to get away from that. So I'd like us to just think about this partnership and engagement, and also consider that our families that engage with the school now were at one time students. And I remind folks that if students don't have a great school experience, just because they become parents doesn't, magically change the relationship they had with the school. So if you have a parent who maybe did not have a great education experience, they might be a little reluctant to engage in that system, even though their student attends school there. So I want to focus on relationships, that families must feel seen, heard, and understood. We hear from a lot of families that they feel like the parents that are involved tend to be in cliques and they don't fit in. They don't know how to get involved. So if we think about some of our groups that exist within the school, how are we making sure that all families are seen, all families are heard, and it's not just the same families that are represented in our decision making committees and other councils. The other thing we need to do is engage in ongoing discovery. And what I mean by this is that we have conversations, we do surveys, we find out what parents want or need, but oftentimes we don't share with them the changes we've made based on their feedback. And when we do that, we're losing a little bit of trust, because if parents are going to take the time to give their opinions and ideas, it's good for us to reciprocate that relationship by sharing with them the changes that we've made based on the conversations and the surveys and the listening we've done with families. So we have to engage in that ongoing discovery, and that means that we're constantly sharing how we're listening and what we're doing with that information. Another big one is being intentional. So we talk about, our family engagement plans. And are they intentional, or is it just to put a few events on the books for next year? And I think a lot of our schools look at it as something they have to do. And so let's do a big fun event and hope that a bunch of people show up. And if we're not being intentional, we're missing out on a lot of different ways that we can engage with families. Not all families are going to come into the school building. So if we have a purposeful plan, we're thinking of it in tiers. So similar to MTSS, we're thinking about what are those tier approaches to reach families? How can we reach all families? And that's going to be through some communication techniques. We're going to reach some families through bringing them into the school. We're going to reach other families by deepening their engagement on councils and committees, but we have to have a purpose for reaching all families. And we can't do that if we don't have a good, solid plan and know who's responsible for what. So I noticed that this is where we get tripped up a lot, is that when we ask districts or we ask schools if they have plans around family engagement, they tend to talk about things they do every year. They have certain events that they host every year. But what is the intention? Is the intention to build parent leaders? Is the intention to build more relationships? There's not intention behind it. It's just, well, we've always done this event, so we know how to do it. We've got people who show up to do it. We've got partnerships. But if there's no intention or purpose behind it, we encourage our schools to think about meaningful ways that they can be more intentional. So including everyone, I've already kind of talked about this, but we have to create those opportunities for all families to participate in ways that work for them. And I'm going to share some strategies that we have done, and we also have heard from other schools and districts that have been successful. And then the overall goal would be that we have meaningful, inclusive family engagement approaches, because we really want to build trust. We have to foster some leadership for our families to feel comfortable in decision making, and so that they can help strengthen our schools. So if you can advance to the next slide. Relational versus transactional. I ask our schools when they're thinking about their family engagement plans to think about the events or anything they have planned around, is this more a relational event or is this more a transactional event? So relational event means that they're going to focus on building deep, authentic relationships. Transactional events are more short term and they're often impersonal. So when we think about something that involves parents to show up and fill out paperwork, that's going to be transactional. Relational is going to be where we spend time getting to know each other, where we spend time really connecting, and we provide intentional connection between families and the school and families with each other. And so oftentimes we have an event and we're not even connecting families to other families. Families are kind of there and they're maybe participating in the event with their immediate family, but they're not given a chance to connect with other families. They're not paired up with other families. They're not asked to talk and share with other families. And so we miss this opportunity for connection. And then the goal in this is really to move as many of our events and activities from that transactional to more of a relational type of engagement. And when we do that, you'll start to notice that more families will be involved. And so then you'll get that attendance that we're so used to seeing people measure.
Before we move on to the next slide, I believe Ms. Hanger has a question. Ms. Hanger, do you
Sure.
want to unmute and ask?
Yeah, this is a really good resource, and I was curious if it would be shared with us, if it was something that I would be able to use going over with my principals.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Laura, will you be able to send it to me and I can send it to everybody on the committee?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
So I'm gonna, just for the short amount of time we have this morning, I wanted to provide you with some really concrete strategies. I know sometimes we give like this overarching, let's build more relationships and let's think about, how we can work on our plans to deepen this partnership. But I really want to actually give you some strategies that folks have done. So as we get into those, I want you to think about Dr. Karen Mapp's work. And if you're not familiar with that, that's going to be the dual capacity framework. And it's rooted in research around what makes good family school partnerships. And one of the things in the dual capacity framework is the 4 C's. And we think about that when we think about engaging families. So the 4 C's are confidence, cognition, connection, and capabilities. And to the previous slide, when I talked about being intentional, if we think about these 4 C's, we then become more intentional with the ways that we engage with families. If we want to build families' confidence, what kinds of events or activities will build parents' confidence? And that can be building parents' confidence to serve as decision makers in the school, their confidence to just speak up, talk with teachers more, their confidence to help their student with at-home learning strategies, so many things. So how can we build parents' confidence? How can we also build the value of education through cognition? How do we share with families the importance of and their beliefs of education and how they influence their child in that way? So changing that cognition. And then connection. And I mentioned earlier, we did a research, we did an evaluation for 5 years through our statewide family engagement center work. And through that research, we found that the missed opportunity was really in connecting families when they attended events or were engaged with the school, that we weren't connecting them with other families, and that they often feel isolated, that they don't know who the parents are of their students' friends, and they don't know who people are in their community. And so, especially for a lot of our larger districts, that can be really challenging for newcomers to the area. So how are we building connection? So if you're hosting something at your school, are you intentionally building connection between families? And then capabilities of families. How do we build in knowledge and skill building activities throughout the school year? So if we think through the 4 C's and we think about our family engagement plan, we're going to be able to provide more strategies that are innovative and engage more families, and we see deeper engagement. So if you'll move to the next slide. I just want to talk about a few and think about back to school. We have a model called a back to school base camp. And so I'm not going to read every slide to you here, but just some touch points. Thinking about a lot of our back to school events are rooted in giving out school supplies, just kind of coming into the school, having some fun activities, maybe, you know, bounce houses in the parking lot. And we do a lot of fun events, but really thinking intentionally about how do we host a back to school event that allows families to get to know who's in the school building, not just the teacher, but who are the main players in the school building? Who's the administrators? Is the superintendent involved? Are there places for families to sit at round tables and talk to folks with, you know, from the special ed department to the family resource center? Like, are there intentional conversations that are happening, or are we just bringing parents in? They walk around and they grab brochures from tables and get school supplies and then head out the door. Our model is more intentional around base camp. If you think about a base camp, it's where you get all the instruction for the year, right? You know what to expect. So at base camp, you're going to know who the people are you need to contact. You're going to know what the building looks like. So you're going to get kind of like a tour of the building. You're going to get to talk to maybe school board members. So our model for base camps is really taking that back to school event and deepening, moving from a transactional, showing up to pick up materials and supplies, to a relational, learning about each other, really feeling that you're getting that, we would sometimes say like an orientation, and we do that at those transition moments for our students, but thinking about every year as a transition. So every back to school event should be more relational and should deepen our engagement with families. So the goal here is to provide families the opportunity to build relationships and feel informed, that they really have the instruction manual that's going to guide them through the year because they've had this base camp event. So we build connection and capabilities through that. The next slide. We have a model called Parents and Teachers Talking Together, a PT3. The Pritchard Committee has hosted PT3s, I think, for the last 20 years in Kentucky. They are facilitated conversations between parents and teachers. And so what we do is we talk a lot about coalitioning the willing. So that means it doesn't have to be 100 parents in attendance. It could be a handful of parents and a handful of teachers. But with a PT3, we come together, we have some questions that we ask from both groups. We have them talk about similarities between their answers. We have them compile those answers into an action plan. And they've been really successful in areas that we've done them. And with our community schools work, we're encouraging our districts to host more parents and teachers talking together events as well. This is not something that we see happen a lot. We'll see the one-on-one with the parent-teacher conference, but in terms of having parents and teachers together for the specific reason of coming up with kind of an action plan of what are the things that we want for our students and working together on those things, it can be really innovative if you're not providing that space already. So this provides connection between parents to parents and parents to teachers, and also helps change and shift some of those beliefs. So thinking on that cognition, it really helps both groups kind of go away with the understanding that we all want the same thing, and that's that we want the success for our students. Next slide. Some innovative strategies we've heard about recently, launching a Parents as Teachers program. So how do we include parents in mini classes or workshops? And that can be done in the community setting if safety is kind of an issue within the school. So how are we partnering and finding out strengths of parents to lead after school events, workshops at the some of our extension offices or libraries in the community. And so this is something that we're kind of encouraging our folks who are working in family engagement to think about how they can launch some of these programs. So this really gives parents a chance to hone in on their capabilities, their skills and knowledge that they have to offer, and then build some confidence to serve more in their community as they can. And so in our parent leadership program, we have a requirement that our parents complete a project. And a lot of our parents do feel that they have some things that they would like to share about their day jobs or things that they do in their careers that they'd like to share with students, or they just have some great ideas of things they would like to see happening. And so we encourage them in their projects to think through some of these programs that they could start. And so we've had a few parents that have done similar projects around hosting some of these mini classes and workshops. The next slide, please. Provide micro-credentials for parent participation. So how can we create a badging system so parents attend an event or attend, maybe something that provides them with a certification, maybe it's a certificate that the school gives, or they can create a digital badge for them to put on their signature line. How can we make some fun ways that parents kind of understand that their knowledge and skill building is building this intentional work with the school? So the more we can brand it, we talk about, we have Champions for Our Children. We have a 6-week module that we teach some of our family engagement specialists about, and they can run with that if they want to do a badging for every meeting. That would be 6 meetings, and so you get, a level up. And then when you finish, you become a champion for our children and you get a certificate. So any ways that we can really encourage our parents to participate and then give them the kudos and the celebration for their completion is going to really help them feel more involved, and it's going to be a more meaningful experience for them. Builds their confidence and their capabilities. So the next slide. We've seen a lot of schools do this recently, but we talk about how hard it is sometimes to reach some families. And so how are we showing up in communities with pop-up events? So you might have heard Popsicles with the Principal. So in Eastern Kentucky, there was a school recently over the last few years that's implemented a Popsicles with the Principal pop-up event, showing up in communities with coolers full of popsicles and just a chance for the principal to talk with parents and students. Just a real informal event to engage and build those relationships. So thinking about where family engagement can temporarily be set up. It doesn't always have to be in the school. It can be in many places throughout the community. So meeting families where they are. Where do they already show up? I know we've heard some schools that reach families at sporting events because they know that a lot of families are going to be, on the football field, or they're going to be at certain events related to the sports. And so they'll show up there to host some family engagement opportunities. So the next slide. Hosting learning walks for families. This is something that some of our current family leadership participants are using as their project. Something we've learned about through the Community Schools Initiative. I believe David's on the call. David was with us last week in Anaheim as we got to actually experience a learning walk at one of their schools. So this is something that might be more challenging for schools that are worried about safety or have been told that they're not able to have parents in the building during the day. And that's something I think we need to talk through and think about, because some of our schools do feel the pressure to keep parents out during the school day, and that's contributing to a lack of relationship work that can be done. So this learning walk requires families to actually be in the school building, or community members to be in the school building. It is not a place where parents are coming in to critique what's happening in the classroom. It's just a place for parents to come in and observe. So you're going to have to do some work with teachers who might participate in this to help them understand that this is a no pressure experience. This is not something that they should feel is going to be an evaluation of any sort. This is just a chance to get parents more engaged in what's happening in the school building. And so it's been really successful in other schools. It's going to take some prep and some working through some of the kinks that folks might be concerned about. But I've seen it happen, and it's really powerful. But these learning walks provide an opportunity for parents to tour the classroom, kind of see what students are working on. And then you can bring the parents back to a space where you can talk and debrief about it and just talk about maybe how school looks different than maybe when you went to school. There's some guiding questions that we can provide. And so the goal really is just to foster that transparency, give families an opportunity to be in the building, see what's happening, and maybe connect with their own child's educational experience if they happen to be in their student's classroom. Next slide. I'm going to end here, but just say that we try to encourage our schools and districts to not reinvent the wheel. There are some things that have been done throughout our state. There's some things that we know work really well. We're always there to help schools and districts. So if you're working with folks who need some more information about family engagement, I know most of you are familiar with our Family Friendly Schools initiative, and that's really focused on building a team that's working on family engagement strategies. My work is really to build parents' capabilities and confidence to engage in this space. And so we do that through the Commonwealth Institute for Parent Leadership. We've graduated more than 3,000 parents over the last 30 years in SIP. We call it SIPL for short because it's such a long name. But we're always available to help any school or district. They just need to reach out to us and we can provide consultation. One of the things we like to do with SIPL is that we encourage our families who have graduated and become fellows to develop teams in their school, deepen in their projects that they've worked on to complete the fellowships. Many of our projects go on to be projects that turn into programs. And so you'll also see a lot of our fellows who are serving in positions throughout our state. Julie Pyle, who serves on the Kentucky Board of Education, she is a SIPL fellow. We have SIPL fellows who serve on local school boards. We have fellows who serve on FRISC advisory councils, and just so many different roles. SBDM, a lot of our parent leaders are serving in those capacities. So if you're interested in SIPL, we can help you create a local cohort, or you can encourage your families to attend our state cohort. Our state cohort does meet virtually, so that allows for parents from all over the state to participate. But we're encouraging schools and districts to embrace a more local model because parents can meet in person. That's been another thing that we've kind of come back to, is that the hybrid approach is great, having virtual options for parents and in-person options, but it's really hard to be as relational virtually. It's a lot easier when we can be in the same space, we can meet with each other. So we believe in the local model of SIPL. And when you create this cohort of parents, it doesn't have to be 20 parents. It can be a handful. It can be 4 or 5 parents who are strong in their leadership. And our goal is that they build a partnership with the school. So they're figuring out how they can kind of step in and fill in some of the gaps for parent engagement, and that they can be ambassadors for the school. So it's all about partnership, and parents become informed leaders, and then they advocate for not only their student. A lot of our parents get into SIPL because of their own student, but really it becomes about all students. And so I'm going to leave you just with the Coalition of the Willing. We've got to get away from thinking about attendance as the main driver for family engagement, because that was how we measured family involvement. Family engagement is measured through how people feel about the relationship they have with the school. So you can have a parent who works long hours, is not able to show up in the school building, but feels very engaged because they have regular communication with the school, or phone conversations with the teacher, or know that the teacher is there for them to talk to, and they can feel deeply engaged in that way. even if they're not able to attend a lot of events. So we have to rethink the way that we measure engagement, and we have to move from our transactional relationships to more of that relational approach. And like I said, Coalition the Willing start with the few who are interested, and they will build upon that. And so focusing on connection, confidence, capabilities, and cognition, and being real intentional with our plans, making sure that we have intention and purpose behind our plans for family engagement.
Thank you so much, Laura. Does anybody have any questions for Laura?
Laura,
right.
this is David. This is David. After last week, I sent an email to Travis about possibly getting some presentation material in front of our Title I Part A webinars. And we serve other programs outside Title I Part A that have family engagement and outreach requirements, but every district in the state receives Title I Part A. So I was thinking that's probably a good place if we could get together and introduce some additional information. Maybe for those who don't know, that'd be a good place to do it. So I don't know if I followed up with the right person, but I did send that to Travis, or Travis, Roger, maybe.
It was Travis. Yep.
Yeah, Travis.
Yeah.
Okay, Travis. Okay. Good thing you're good with names because I'm not. But yeah, I sent something yesterday. If you all would be willing to do that, just a proposal for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Laura? All right. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Laura. I really appreciate your time and your expertise on this topic.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you. All right. Erin has some follow-up discussion questions that we, of course, always would like to hear your feedback about how KDE is doing in relation to these topics that we share with you. So, Erin, do you want to lead us through these questions?
Sure. Up first is just if anybody wants to share how parent and family engagement funds are being used in your school or district. We're always looking, districts are always asking, what are other districts doing? And we'd like to be able to share that information. I will say that during monitoring this year, we've been at a couple of schools that were doing some really interesting things. So I'm hoping to maybe get them to maybe participate in a webinar or something and kind of share about some of their initiatives and events and things like that. All right, what about an example of an engaging parent and family event that you've participated in, whether that's you as a parent or as school or district personnel? I liked a lot of all those examples that Laura shared. I thought were really great.
Hi, Erin. I don't care to share some of the things that in Montgomery County. I don't know if it's unique or different, but I don't care to share because this is always an area that we're looking to grow in. So
everybody says
the information the information we just received was really helpful. So we do a lot of things kind of like the boot camps, like the kindergarten jump start, doing transition. This summer, we're adding in we're going to do a preschool transition with our preschoolers coming in and having different centers and stations, and for parents and the students to come around and do things. This year, we have all of our schools did math family nights where they came in, the parents came in, and they all did like make and takes. So they got to experience different math games, and they got to make the math game so that they were then able to take it home.
Yeah.
And usually with those nights too, our principals offer sessions sessions, like we'll have a room where they can talk about the different assessments that our schools give, that they can talk about the Title I program there. So I just think how this has evolved from when I was a principal 13 years ago, when we used parent involvement money to buy agenda books and things, and how that's really gone into how do we really build these partnerships. So, and then something else that we do as a district, a couple times a year, we bring in parents and community members and teachers. We all come together and we get feedback on a lot of different things, including our district improvement plan. But one of the things we always have on there is Title I topics. So we bring in our district parent involvement policy and get feedback from our parents on that. But I really like the suggestion that our previous presenter shared with us about, once we get the suggestions, do we really take it back and say, oh, this is what we changed? Like we make changes based on that. But I don't know that I've specifically gone back and said, here are some of the things that we've done. So I really want to try and be intentional with that moving forward.
Yeah, I think that could be something I could see schools maybe sharing at that annual meeting when we're talking about, you have, we want your feedback. Look, here's some examples of what we did with your feedback. I think that would really help them see that connection and feel heard. So kind of related to that is, does anybody have any thoughts about a topic that you'd like to see during a parent and family engagement event? I think some of the, ones we're used to are math and reading, science, things like that, but it can be so many more things. And it doesn't always have to be an event where the parents and the kids are there together. Sometimes the parents need information without the kids present. Some that we've seen this year, we've seen some mental health and wellness type events. We've seen internet safety. For the older kids, we see like college and career readiness, maybe working on the FAFSA application if they're high schoolers. So there's a lot of opportunities there.
Erin, I'll chime in on that too.
Yeah.
In our district at our parent engagement nights, we've also been collaborating across other programs in our district. So for instance, we also received the AWARE grant that helps improve social, emotional, and mental health of our students. So we kind of collaborate together, and those personnel also come in, provide key information to parents and offer sessions about those topics as well, which we also know benefits Title I because it, impacts the student's ability to learn at higher levels, and how parents can help support those things that students are learning at home, not only academically, but emotionally and behaviorally at home as well. So,
yeah, definitely like making those connections where you can.
Erin, if it's okay, I'd like to just add something. I'm a parent of high schoolers, and the question is always, how do we engage more high school parents? And one of the things we know is that parents still want to see their kids perform. They still want to know what's happening. And oftentimes as our children, get older, we don't have those same opportunities. They're not in school plays anymore unless they're in drama club, or maybe there's not as many show and tell opportunities. And so for parents of high schoolers and friends of mine, we talk often about, if there are things that are ways that we can see in our kids' work showcase, those are things that would, engage high school parents. And then also you talked about mental health, the topics that we're all dealing with as our children get older, how to keep them safe. Those types of events are still really wanted by parents and warranted given our circumstances with our children. So thinking about ways to engage parents at the high school level are, what are the things they're most interested in? And usually it's going to be the struggles that they're facing with their students. And then also they want to engage more with their students. So they want to know what they're learning about and being able to showcase that. And so just wanted to share that.
Yeah, well, and I like one of the notes in the was it called Learning Walk? I've completely blanked on the name of it. The concept of like actually engaging them in the content, and so they're kind of able to see that work, but they're also engaging as opposed to just here it is, here's the thing for you to look at and leave. All right, and then my
And,
last.
let me
Sorry.
jump in. We also had some feedback on from Dr. Ainger about STEM night and a literacy night. Dr. Ainger, do you want to unmute and share any of those details with the committee?
Yeah, I know for a fact the literacy night is always done with Title I funds because I used to be on the SVDM, so I know that they did that. And I would say both of the events are really big turnouts. Probably still the same families coming to most of them. And this just jogged my memory too of I do know our school will go out to one of the communities and actually go and like do an activity at the community where some of the kids who aren't able to make it in to the school for evening events, they do things like that. Again, I don't know which funds actually pay for that, but they deliver books and they'll take snacks and, you know, do stuff outside, like at the little playground that they all have there. So they do lots of things to try and engage in different ways too for those families that can't necessarily make it into the school. But I mean, I know those other events, like, I mean, I always go with my kids and there's always tons of people and they'll bring in like food trucks and things like that too, to try and encourage families to like make it a whole evening. And you know, like I said, they're big turnouts, lots of kids, lots of families, just fun ways to encourage that type of engagement.
All right, thanks. And then the last question is just, are there any suggestions for how we at KDE can provide additional support to districts regarding parent and family engagement? Always looking for new things we can provide to help you all. I think the one I usually hear is examples of events and activities. And so that, like I said before, that is something I'm kind of trying to work on with some of our people that we've monitored this year. So hopefully that'll be coming soon-ish.
Erin, I would just add here that I hear more and more about school safety, and they're being told, you know, that they're not allowed to have parents in the building. So clarification around that, and maybe that's more of a local decision. But just something that kind of clears the air there, because I think that there's some conflicting information out there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Thank you all. This has been a great discussion and great feedback. Really love to hear the examples of how districts are working and people's experiences within the schools around parent and family engagement. If you are a committee member and you have any further thoughts or questions, you are always welcome to follow up with me. If you think of something later, follow up with me directly through email, any additional feedback you might have. For now, let's go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is an update from Shara Savage. She is the Education Administration Program Manager in the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support in the Office of Assessment and Accountability here at the Kentucky Department of Education, and she has an update to share with us. Welcome, Shara, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Tara. I appreciate your invite here today. So good morning, everyone. She said, my name is Shara Savage. I am excited to share updates on the Kentucky United We Learn initiative, specifically the development of Framework 3.0 and how we are working to finalize a 4.0. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about town halls. So we went across Kentucky, and during that, during those regional town halls, I'm excited to share that over 60 individuals participated in these valuable conversations across the state. As the data shows, the majority of our attendees, about 75%, were educators, which really reflect the strong interest from schools and districts in shaping the future of accountability and learning in Kentucky. We also saw contributions from other key voices, including 7% from the broader community, 2% from the business sector, and a smaller but important representation from the legislative and government leaders, as well as families. The remaining 14% includes students or partner organizations and individuals who didn't identify, but who still chose to participate and contribute to the conversation. This level of engagement speaks to the power of collaboration and reinforces the importance of hearing from all corners of the education system as we refine our path forward with 3.0 and the development of 4.0. So next slide, please. As we analyze feedback across the regional town halls, several key themes continue to emerge in nearly every conversation, highlighting shared properties and concerns across our communities. First and foremost, assessments were a major topic. Stakeholders consistently emphasized the importance of meaningful, relevant assessment practice and how assessments connect to the broader accountability goals. There was strong support for incorporating more accountability elements, flexibility, community-driven approaches that reflects what matters most to districts. Vibrant learning experiences, or the VLEs, as you may hear it out in the field, were frequently mentioned as a priority area, especially those that go beyond the traditional classroom models and provide hands-on engaging opportunities for students. Content areas like social studies and science were raised often, with stakeholders calling for greater emphasis and a balance among subjects. Student growth, equity concerns, and the inclusion of special education students were also a recurring topic, reflecting the field's focus on fairness, opportunity, and accessibility for all learners. And finally, many questions and discussions centered around federal requirements and how they are interpreted and how the future accountability changes will be implemented across the state. These themes are not just observations. They are shaping the direction. They did shape the direction of 3.0, ensuring it reflects what Kentuckians value most in education. Next slide, please. So I was here with you a couple months ago, and I was sharing with you 2.0 and talking about the creation of 3.0. So we'll talk a little bit about the differences that happen between 2 and 3.0. This slide highlights the key differences between the framework 2.0 and the updates we've incorporated into 3.0 based on district feedback and those town hall discussions. First, under framework 3.0, districts now have expanded flexibility when it comes to interim assessments. They can choose to administer either a state-developed reading and mathematics interim assessment or independently purchase tools that meet their local needs. Second, off-grade science testing, specifically for grades 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9, is now optional. Districts have the option to either use the state-developed assessments or design their own tools aligned with local curriculum and priorities. Third, we've developed optional assessments in reading and mathematics for grades K through 2. This is a new addition to the Framework 3.0, and again, districts can select KDE provided options or use a tool of their choosing. And finally, the graphic itself has been updated to reflect this new layered approach. It clearly represents both the federal and state requirement components, as well as the locally determined measures, providing a more holistic view of Kentucky's balanced and accountability system. Okay, and we'll go to the next slide. So on this slide, we look at the past and we're looking at the future. So as we transition to a more balanced and responsive accountability system, it's important to reflect on where we've been and where we're headed. Again, on the left side of the slide, you'll see some of the key priorities from the past. These include standardization with same assessments across all subjects and little instructional flexibility. The focus was on comparison, often ranking schools using color-coded ratings with minimum collaboration among districts. State control meant all accountability measures were determined centrally with the same expectations applied to every school. And then finally, systems were largely built for compliance, emphasizing whether requirements were met rather than on how the schools were growing and improving. Now, on the right side, we see how the system is evolving. Going forward, the focus will be on those vibrant learnings, giving students greater agency to determine what they know in ways that matter to them. Collaboration, encouraging districts to work together with their communities, replacing comparison with shared support, which with that, we are already seeing a great level of collaboration between the districts now. Local innovation, empowering districts to co-design accountability systems that reflect their local values while still aligning with some state requirements. And then feedback and support, shifting away from compliance towards growth with peer nets and expert input, guiding schools toward meaningful, customized improvement. This shift reflects a broader vision for Kentucky's future, one that centers on learning, local voices, and support. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Here you'll see that if you remember from, I believe it was January that was with you last, we've updated the graphic. As we look at the future of accountability in Kentucky, this graphic represents how we are moving towards a more balanced system, one that blends both federal requirements and local priorities to better serve our students. On the right hand, you'll see federal accountability indicators. These are the components that are required for all schools. They include summative performance in reading and math, individual student growth, transition readiness and graduation rate, English language progress, climate and safety survey, a science assessment. Now, here it's important to note that while science must be tested statewide, districts may include it in their local accountability systems with added competency-based measures. And then, of course, on the left side, you will see those local accountability indicators, which give schools and districts the flexibility to reflect their unique goals and community needs. This includes locally determined indicators, interim assessments in reading and math, science off-grade testing, and components required with options such as vibrant learning experiences, writing, and social studies. This balance between consistency and flexibility allows us to better support a local portrait of a learner, ensures continuous improvement, and provides a more personalized and student-centered experience for every learner across the Commonwealth. Together, these components offer a more holistic picture of the student's success, one that goes beyond the test scores and truly reflects learning that matters. So this 3.0 was presented to the Kentucky Board of Education, and they had some concerns about the amount of testing that is still within the framework of 3.0. They ask that the new framework be created at 4.0 and taken to back to SCAC and LSAC for consideration and comment, and then bring the feedback from those two groups to the Kentucky Board of Education at the next meeting in June. Okay, so next slide. And so here is just the phased approach that we will take. Once everything is approved, because once we take it to the board in June, then we will start the talks with legislators, and in these 26th legislative session, we will present this, and hopefully it will move forward as proposed. If so, we will have a pilot phase, and then we will have an expansion phase, and then a full working phase. So we will do a phased-in approach based on what is approved by Kentucky legislators. Okay, next slide, please. And then, the moonshot, I'm sure many of you have already seen this. It, right now, as I was saying, we are in that advocacy phase, and we hope to land on the moon in the summer of 2026. And that, so I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions.
Tara, I have one. Did
Yeah.
you say that that there would be a group of pilot districts for the upcoming school year?
No, once everything is in place, once we have approval, then we will work to implement a pilot a pilot phase. And so more to come on that. But the main goal is to get everything approved by the Kentucky Board of Education, then moving into that legislative session and getting that approval first.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you for inviting me and letting me be a part of your group today. So, Tara, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much for being with us, and really appreciate all this information that you've shared with us. Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
All right. So Erin is going to give us a brief update on some Title I news. That just a brief update on the next slide, and we'll turn it over back to Erin, our branch manager.
All right, so since I last saw you all, the final 2024-25 allocations for all the districts have been uploaded into our application system, GMAP. So our districts have been working on making revisions and resubmitting those for approval. We are almost done with our consolidated monitoring season. We visit 10 districts every year, and the 10th district is being visited this week. So we'll be wrapping that up. And as I said before, looking forward to sharing some of the best practices that we've seen this season with districts and schools. We also have several new district resources available concerning one of the Title I requirements called Supplement, Not Supplant. Those are on our Documents and Resources webpage. There's a new information document. There's a sample methodology that many districts are required to have. And then I walked through both of those documents during the March webinar, so that recording is also posted on the webpage. And then finally, I've shared a couple times with you all about the Kentucky educator assessment and how we've been working to update that with evaluation systems of Pearson. So we're kind of nearing the finish line there. We have over 100 paraeducators expressed interest in helping with the field testing portion of this process, and that was really exciting. So the first group worked on field testing this past Saturday, and the second group is actually meeting this afternoon. And we David and I and another consultant were working with Pearson in creating the study components for that revised assessment. So we're looking forward to having that available soon as well. And I believe that is all of my updates. Is there any questions about any of the updates? All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Erin. All right, our last agenda item for today is just to get some feedback about next year, because this is our last meeting of the year. Future agenda topics and upcoming meetings. Let's talk about the upcoming meetings first. There's some possible dates listed there. They kind of align with the dates that we've done this year, one in October, one in January, and one in April. I know you may not be able to access your calendar right now. I will send these to you in an email, but if anybody knows right offhand right now that any of these dates will not work for you, you can just let us know right now. And if that's the case, then I can send you all an alternate.
Will those be at the same time as what we currently are right now?
That's proposed, but we are way in advance, and we can change the meeting time if the morning does not work for you all. But we have made them from 9 to 10:30. But and sometimes that can help with consistency. But if that is not convenient, we can always change it. All right, I know some people are checking, and so we'll move on to the next topic, which is just future agenda topics. And if you need to come back to this, if you discover that one of these dates will not work for you, go ahead and speak up, and we'll discuss that some more. But otherwise, I mentioned in an email to you all that we had a suggestion for preschool. Someone was looking for preschool practices to ways to address preschool behaviors. And again, our presenter was not able to be there for this meeting, but we are going to try to get her here for the October meeting next year. In addition to that, do you all have any requests for topics that you would like to discuss at an upcoming meeting next year? Actually, specifically for that October when we'll have preschool, is there anything else you would like to hear about or discuss? Okay, and we have one committee member who will not be able to work with January 14th. What I'll do is I'll try to select a different date in January and just get an idea of I'll send you these dates, but also an alternate in January, and see if you would be okay with that alternate date instead. So we can try to get as many people available as possible. So I didn't hear any suggestions for future agenda topics, but if you think of anything, feel free to email me directly, and we will do our best to talk about that during an upcoming meeting and get that on the agenda. I want to thank you all so much for your participation this year. I hope that you all have gotten something out of it. I hope it's been helpful to you, because it's certainly very helpful to us. We love to engage with our stakeholders whenever possible, and I really appreciate the constructive and informative and thoughtful discussions and feedback that you all have provided us this year. So many thanks for your help and your participation on the committee this year. And I hope that you will be able to continue to do this next year, because I really have enjoyed working with you all this year. All right. If anybody, I see we have somebody is getting ready to share something with us. Does anybody else have anything else before we adjourn? All right. Thank you all so much. Hope to see you next year.